Hello, colleagues. I'm happy to see all of you on the first BA Excellence Conference. My name is Yjinia Aucharenka, and I believe most of you knows me. I'm head of the global BA community as the owner of today's conference. Few words about it for people who are new. Currently, we are more than 4,000 community members all over the world, with different seniority, with different domain expertise. But we are staying together, building a great network of professionals for knowledge experience sharing, for supporting each other, and for growing up together. The community was launched several years ago by BAs from EPAM, but currently consists of representatives from more than 20 different companies from IT sector. And I believe each of you could find a lot of useful and interesting inside of it. So join us and enjoy the conference. And let me open it with our first speaker, Kirill Zabavski, who is senior BA, and he'll tell you about BA self-education as a part of BA lifestyle. Hi, Kirill.
Hi,
ready? Presentation?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess we may start.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. And I want to be frank with you. The title of this speech wasn't selected by me, but this quote was absolutely mine. And in my opinion, we are stuffed with all these personal improvements, pursuit of the better version of ourselves due to different complicated obstacles. But despite this fatigue, the environment pushes us forward and we have to develop ourselves, even though we don't want to do it on a daily basis. Due to these obstacles, I decided to find out the ways how to continue to develop despite the circumstances and do it effectively, calmly, and usefully. So let's do it within the next 60 minutes. But before going further to this presentation, it was important for me to answer for 3 questions that I usually ask myself before each public speaking. The first one is, who am I? I guess I will never find out it for 100%. But from moral perspective, I name myself as a running IT man. Why do I do so? Because I love running and I work in IT. What relates to IT, I'm a senior business analyst in Andersen company, have an experience of working as product owner and business analyst. I teach students in IT schools, mentor interns, conduct and update my own online courses of business analysis. I used to be resource manager for teen analysts, established and supported the training program in BA department, and a lot more. But I consider that my main change was made at the age of 19 when I gave up smoking and started running. Mostly, this change allowed me to have this slide and have my minute of fame by reciting the list of achievements for these 3 or even 5 years. I don't want to tell you about all my work experience and achievements, even though my inner narcissist tells me to go on and on. All this detailed information about me you can see on this slide. All non-professional information you can find in my social networks. Follow them if you are interested, but please after this meetup. The second question is, why am I here? The first answer is that I want to share my experience in a clear, fun, and easy way. If to go a little bit deeper, of course I also want to feed my ego by being in the role of an expert who tells something important to the audience. And of course I want to improve my soft skills and social networks due to this presentation. But the third question is about you. Why are you here? Of course, I couldn't ask you before this meetup so as to understand the root cause of why are you here. But I can do it now. And I ask you to write down a comment. Why are you here? It will be cool to see how many comments do we have, because my assumption is that you are here for knowledge, people, and fun. This was my main assumption about this performance, and that's why I decided to make my presentation useful, practical, and fun. Before we go deeper, I would like to introduce the agenda of this presentation. Firstly, I will tell you some information about work-life balance, wheels of life, and ways of its alignment. Hopefully, you will laugh at my wheel of life. Disclaimer, it's not a wheel at all. Then I will tell you how I fell in love with self-development and instilled it into my life. And again, disclaimer, I didn't fall in love into self-development, but instilled it into my life. Then I would like to describe the most important soft skills and hard skills for the business analyst of different levels such as junior, middle, and senior. Of course, I would like to show you the ways and the sources that help you to improve these skills. Finally, I will tell you about my atomic habits that helped me to achieve great results within 5 years, and hopefully some of them you will bring into your life. And after that, I will ask you to argue with me about what I've said or ask some questions if you have them. So let's start. And we start with work-life balance. The main question here is for me, is it a myth or reality? Please write down your answer in the comments whether you consider it a myth or reality. I made my own researches and can say that 49 voters were for myth and 19 voters were for reality. While you are writing this comment, I will show you the ideal wheel of life. As you can see here, the person has 10 points in all spheres of life. He's absolutely happy. He has a lot of vacations and he works a lot simultaneously. He improves every day and have a lot of hobbies. He's absolutely happy. I don't know what's going on in your head now, but I just become green with envy when I imagine this guy. Why? Because looking at this wheel of life, I recall my wheel of life when I was a junior BA. Here it is. As you can see, it completely differs from the wheel on the previous slide. I guess only self-development had 10 points in it. And that was not just because I was absolutely smart. It was because I spent all my free time on self-development. Not only because of the love or desire to become better. I was just terrified that I will be dismissed from the company due to low performance and any other obstacles. That's why I ignored all other spheres of life, except only sport, and dedicated all the time to acquiring new skills. I wished that I would become happier when I become a middle BA. Start get more money and will have more free time. But my will actually didn't become really better when I became a middle BA. In general, it has become larger, but certainly not smoother. I continued spending much time in self-development, but understood that finances and self-development can't bring me everything that I want. And even when my salary increased 3 times, I didn't become happier 3 times more. But of course, I started thinking less about money and understood that life is not only about figures, business analysis, self-development, and finances. That's about more. And going back to my question, whether the work life... Oh, okay, luckily I made this mistake and now I don't need to consider and think a lot about these mistakes of pronunciation and can proceed in easy and calm way. And let's go and repeat. And going back to my question, whether the work-life balance is a myth or reality, I would say so. In my opinion, that's a myth if we are talking about it in retrospect of 1 day or 1 week or even 1 month. But that's a reality if we talk about it in retrospect of 1 year. And here is my wheel of life now. To be frank, it's not actually a wheel at all. I'm like this wolf who always tries to fix some spheres of life, and while he's doing it, other spheres start rolling down faster and faster. And you know what? I'm happy being in this position. Why? Because I admitted that it will always be in my life, and that's okay. But if I see a wheel where everything is perfect, it's time for me to think, don't I miss something, or do I really try to improve my life? Because in my opinion, it's very complicated to become better when everything is all right. That's why I want to show you the methods that help you to proceed develop yourself even when everything is not all right. So let's go. How to love self-development? For me, this question sounds like a joke. Do we really can love self-development? Please write down plus if you consider that we can love and minus if you consider that we can't. And while you're writing your answer, I will show you what I really love and compare it to self-development. Here what I actually love. I love running, love escaping out of a comfort zone, love teaching, traveling, and so on. And on the opposite side, we have Software Requirements Engineer, the third edition of Carl Wiggers, and Babok, the fourth edition of International Institute of Business Analysis. I guess my answer is obvious. I consider that there is only one way to instill self-development in your life. Make it a habit, because only in that case you will be capable to become better without spending a lot of inner resources and self-motivation for learning new instruments and techniques in business analysis, acting courses, or running trainings. And here are the main stages of making self-development your habit. First stage is maturation. It's when you consider whether you should achieve this goal or not. The second is preparation. At this stage, you set the intention to carry out the plan. At the third stage of an action, you try to make it and repeat it several times, but you still don't have it as a habit. And the last stage is maintenance and preservation. At this stage, you have been practicing for a long time, but there are some breakdowns. And you do it again, and again. What else can push you forward in wading new habits into your life? As for me, the next 4 items helped me to set and achieve goals in self-development. First, I registered for different non-refundable certifications so as not to have any chance of avoiding learning or distracting from that. All goals are written in my Trello board. Of course, it's not enough to write down the goals so as to achieve it, but it obviously helps you to achieve what you've planned, at least. Without decomposed plan, our goals will remain just goals, because it's cool to set a goal to become a senior BA, but without a plan, it's very complicated to understand what should I do today so as to become a senior analyst in 3, 5, or 7 years. And the last one, of course, is money. Of course, due to this knowledge, you will be capable to earn more. The better you are, the more you earn, as a rule. But, of course, there are some assumptions. But what is the fifth, and in my opinion, the most important, is that there is only one way to instill self-development into your life. Make it a habit. Because only in that case you will be capable to become better without spending a lot of inner resources and self-motivation for learning new instruments and techniques in business analysis, acting courses, running trainings, or anything that you love. Not to overdo with self-development. That's the main issue. Because I promised to make it not only funny and interesting but also useful, I want to set the practical tips of how not to overdo with self-development. And the first, you need to plan your day, week, months, even year, but not a life. When you distribute tasks in a week, month, or year, it's easier to complete them. For example, it's easier to write down the text within 5 days when for the first day I have to write it down to the first section, the next day for the second, and so on and so forth. The second, it's better to set no more than 2 self-development goals simultaneously. It will help you not to lose the focus between multiple tasks and thus lose time and energy on switching between them. Third, take a break in your habit, but not more than 4 days. Okay, we are humans, not Ironmans. That's why it can be 3, but not more. Because if it takes more, you start creating another habit, postponing everything. Fourth, develop in what interests you. It seems obvious, but it's never too late to remind about it. It's very important not only to know what you want, but also know what you don't want. I'm sure I know that I don't want to do, and I don't want to become a system analyst or data analyst. And if I try to learn it, I won't be as efficient as I can be in the roles of business analyst or product owner. Another example of this rule was when I decided to learn German just because I thought that it's cool to know multiple languages. I still think so, but this motivation allowed me to visit only one lessons, and then I understood that it's not my cup of tea and I don't want to spend so much time on something that I don't really need. But what I really need is to tell you about main soft skills and tech skills that are necessary for business analysts of different levels. And I want to start with juniors. My main task as a junior was to survive, because the amount of uncertainty and the number of overcomplicated tasks was more within a week than I used to have within my whole life. Even on the second week, I somehow decided that it's too complicated for me to be a business analyst and it's better to go to dev courses, as if being a developer is easier than being a BA. Luckily, my first free lesson on the development became the last one, and I decided to stay as a business analyst. Of course, at this time, nobody told me about this necessity to develop soft skills. The main task was to understand, learn, and start using all these technical skills and analyst artifacts. But looking in retrospect, I understand that the soft skills now are not less important than hard skills. And the further you go, the more important they become. That's why I want to start specifically with the soft skills that, in my opinion, are the most important for the junior business analyst. That's not the whole list, but that's my top. And this top includes the following: stress tolerance, self-confidence, structuring information, work in a team, and ability to ask the right questions. Now we will see the slide with a lot of information. All best practices say that there shouldn't be a lot of text on your slides so as the audience will get the information easier. But I edit all this text not for the presentation. I edit this text so that in future you will be capable to take this presentation and see the real ways and tips how to improve each skill. So let's go. Stress tolerance, I guess, is the most important skill for junior BA. I won't repeat the reasons why I consider so, but in my opinion, the most efficient tips to improve your stress tolerance is to admit that you will be making mistakes. Then plan your days and start with small part of the task. When I have a very complicated task, I usually start with its decomposition or any small part so as to I can dive deeper into this task. And the most significant thing that helped me to decrease the stress was the book, which name you can see on this slide. Due to some reasons, I won't announce its name. Then, of course, it's very important to improve the self-confidence. Here is not about thinking that being a junior, you're almost a senior analyst. This is more about courage to be naive, ask a lot of questions to your experienced colleagues. And of course, the most obvious is that if you want to improve your self-confidence, you just need to do the actions that require your courage, because in another way, you won't increase it. One of the most common mistakes that I see among juniors is a low quality skill of structuring the information. The best way to do so is to announce the main idea of your text in the first sentence, and remember that each sentence should have not more than one requirement or one main idea. Being a junior BA is also very important to learn how to work in a team, how to get the information from people, how to stand for your vision, and so on. For this case, it's very important to ask your team members for the feedback. But remember that only you decide what to admit and what not. The last but not least is the skill of asking the right questions. In my opinion, the main tool of the analyst is the question, and the more precisely you make it, the better understanding you get. For these skills, it's useful to use open questions instead of closed ones, and always prioritize and group your questions before your call with your potential or current client. But what about hard skills of a junior BA? In my opinion, the most useful and necessary artifacts that business analysts should be capable to create are user stories and use cases, BPM and diagram, vision and scope document, and he should be available to create wireframes and have an ability to work in such methodologies as Scrum and Kanban. Let's have a look closer at these artifacts and how it's better to develop them. In order to practice user stories and use cases, it's good to decompose all your functionality in these items. Make the acceptance criteria and scenarios for them, and then discuss them with the team so as to get the real feedback about their quality. For the BPM and diagrams, it's useful to be proactive and practicing it as much as possible. If you don't need it on the project, you always can describe any of your processes in real life. There is also a useful hint to create your own small notation of used elements for the team and customer, so as it will be easier for them to understand it. I guess the most important document for business analyst is vision and scope document, of course, after Babok or Carl Wiggers. While making this document, I suggest to start with business slide of the project and then work with non-functional requirements, and only after that proceed to the functionality discussion. For better understanding, it's useful to have templates and read some info about it, of course, again, in Carl Wiggers' book of Software Requirements Engineering. In my opinion, for the junior BA, is enough to have the skills of creating wireframes. Mockups and detailed prototypes can wait. In order to create a useful wireframe, it's better to start firstly with the overall map of the system, and only after that proceed to the separate pages. That will help you to see the overall interface structure, and only after that go deeper. Of course, it becomes more and more agile projects that mostly see such frameworks as Scrum and Kanban. Without theory, it will be inefficient to get practical skills. That's why I suggest to read the sources that are represented on this slide. After that, it's very useful to have your own personal Kanban board. I have such a board and I will tell you about it later. If you don't have a chance to work on this project, I suggest to follow some courses like ICP Agile or PSM. They will help you to get the basic background about these methodologies. I repeat that that's not the entire list, but due to time limitation, I suggest to go to the soft skills of middle business analyst. But before that, I also ask you to write down the skills that you consider very important for junior BA, but I didn't mention from your opinion. And the next session of my presentation is about middle business analyst. Your main task is to master the skills as senior. That means that you need to increase the number of soft skills and hard skills that you have and polish the skills that you have gained when was a junior BA. For the middle business analyst, I consider that the next list of soft skills is necessary. It includes visualization, prioritization, tasks planning, requirements reusage, and public speaking. Because being a middle business analyst doesn't mean just to know how to work, but also have an ability to manage your tasks and become a person who transfers the information to other business and team representatives in the ways that are the most useful for each type of information. Let's start with visualization. The main point here is that 80% of people are visuals, and that's why it's very important always to visualize your requirements and everything that you say. You can do it by creating different diagrams, tables, or wireframes. In that case, it will be easier to discuss the requirements with your team or with your colleagues so as to get a better understanding. Of course, the number of tasks and responsibilities increases when we become more and more mature analysts. That's why it's very important to prioritize your tasks so as to define what should be done immediately, what should be done later, and what should be done at all, and what shouldn't be done at all. For that case, I usually use Eisenhower matrix that allows me to diversify the task into 4 categories: important and urgent, important and not urgent, not important and urgent, and not important and not urgent. Cool tongue twister, I think. And of course, we need to start with what is urgent and important, but spend each day at least 1 hour for what is not urgent but important. Usually, our diamonds are hidden there. It can be self-development, sport, presentation preparation, or anything else. So everything that can give us a great value, but its result we won't see in the near future. That's why we usually postpone such tasks. The third task is planning. When we know what to do, we need to understand how and when. Without planning, we can't answer for these questions. That's why I propose the next subsequent steps of personal planning. Set your mission, not a tricky and not a very easy task, that's why maybe postponed. Set all your goals for 10 years, then break them down into spheres of life. Break these goals into 5, 3, or even 1 year. Set goals for 12 weeks, create weekly plans for these goals, and set tasks for the week and a day. This allows you to spend less time and think more about complicated functionality or complicated tasks than just thinking about what you should do and switching between multitasking. The fourth is requirement reusage. I suppose that when you are a middle analyst, you already have the number of functionality that you've already investigated and documented. It can be in some sort of registration, payments, personal profiles, and so on. In order to spend less time for describing it again and again, it's better to follow the next tips. It's cool to create your own templates, save these docs in different sections such as registration, sign-in, payments, and so on. Describe requirements, not the implementation options such as some specific design ways of realization. Then create a traceability matrix so as to correlate your requirements and set one source of truth. I usually use it at Confluence so as not to spend a lot of time on change requests or for modifying different resources of your documentation. And the last, and I guess the most complicated for the person, is public speaking. It's one of the hardest tasks because public speaking is considered one of the most stressful activities for the person, for me either. But without this skill, you will be incapable to help different negotiation discussions effectively and transfer the information or just stand out among your colleagues. The better preparation for the presentation is, the more confident you feel yourself, as a rule. This is why, in order to be well prepared, it's obviously effective to define a topic of your presentation, then define the target audience whom you will be telling this information. After that, determine what the audience wants, make a list of sections, create a structure of slides, complete these slides, and rehearse, and rehearse. Being a middle business analyst doesn't mean that you know and manage all the artifacts that business analyst has to do. That's why it's also very important to proceed increasing the number of artifacts that you can create. I think that at the middle stage, it's necessary to create user story maps and UML diagrams. Increase the technical backgrounds such as backend and frontend, API, SQL, and etc. Of course, it's also important to improve the skills in modeling and prototyping and improve the skills in creating such artifacts as stakeholders or RASI metrics. How to do that? Let's see on the next slide. The first is user story map. I consider that this is the most useful artifacts for the discovery phase. It allows you to invite all stakeholders and create the overall vision of the functionality that has to be done in the system. In order to create an efficient user story map, it's necessary to prepare some draft version, invite all team members and stakeholders, and have a live discussion of main features of the system and users flow. And only after that, go deeper to the specific user stories. For the first time, it's better to use some templates so as not to forget the main elements of this artifact. What about UML diagrams? Of course, I don't think that a business analyst should know all 12 or even more UML diagrams. But the most important, in my opinion, are class diagram, use case, activity, and state chart. After implementing of this diagram, it's necessary to discuss them with the team. They are useful because allow you to describe the system from different perspectives and give a deeper understanding of system functionality for your team. I suggest to invite developers into creation of these artifacts because they will give you this necessary technical background and system perspective in order to make it as efficient as it can be. And in order to be on the same page with your team, it's obviously also necessary to improve the technical background. Despite the fact that BA shouldn't know well all the technical aspects and shouldn't be capable to write a code, it will be a plus to understand the difference between backend and frontend, understand how the system works and how they integrate it with each other, and how the databases work. In order to develop such skills, it's useful to pass through some online courses that give you the complete understanding of how the system works and what solutions are better from technical perspective. I usually use Udemy for such simple courses. If you've already passed such useful courses, please share them in comments so as others could also improve their technical background. Try to think about others, not only about ourselves. As I told before, junior BA should be capable to create some wireframes, but being a middle business analyst means that you should always be capable to create interactive prototypes in order to show hidden aspects of system UI behavior. For this case, it's useful to investigate such tool as Aucharenka and try to make the interactive prototype of any website that you like. But remember that free version of this app is only for 1 month, so don't delay if you installed it. The last artifact relates to the stakeholders management. It includes stakeholders and RASI metrics. This matrices allows you and the team clearly understand who is invited in the project and for what activities each person is responsible, accountable, can be consulted, or just has to be informed. I suggest to make such artifacts at the beginning of the project. It allows everybody to decrease the time for the communication in your team. I usually add the next data about each stakeholder: name, contact details, role, responsibility, and major interests. That's also not a complete list, but these artifacts help me to move a lot to another level of senior business analyst. And in my opinion, the main task for senior business analyst is to transfer knowledge and define the next steps for your career. Because teaching somebody also improves your soft skills very much. It helps you to become better in knowledge sharing, transferring the information to the people, and so on. I point out the next soft skill that should be developed on the senior level. They include listening, leadership, mentoring, negotiation, and people management. Let's look at them closer. By saying listening, I mean the ability to understand and try to point out the most important that tells you a person. I think that this skill is one of the most complicated to learn because in order to develop it, you need to focus on a person. Try not to be helpful and just listen. Don't think about your answer while the person is speaking. Think about what he's saying. That's specifically for extroverts such as me. We need to stay calm a little bit for at least 1 minute. The second is leadership. It's not a secret that when you are a senior business analyst, everybody on the project expects from you more than doing just business analysis activities. They expect you to be the leader who manages the processes on the project, coordinate the work of the team due to business needs, and can also manage the work of the stakeholders in order to move further. It's very complicated to define the term of leader, but it's always easy to say who is leader and who is not. In order to become the leader, it's necessary to take more challenging tasks, be proactive, and always come with the solution, not with the problem. If we are talking about management, it's necessary to study some main techniques of the manager. They include delegation, control, and penalization. Of course, there are more, but these are the fundamentals for me. Being a senior business analyst means that you can not only learn but also teach other analysts how to perform better and what artifacts to create. Due to my experience teaching, somebody also taught me how to transfer information to the people who don't know the subject as well as you, how and what to use so as people learn what you say to them, how to manage tasks of another person. When I mentor, I usually make the next steps. I define the goal of the internship, assess the level of the position of the person, then define the gaps in knowledge and skills that he has and he would like to have, set the list of activities, and move forward with the intern to acquire these new skills. One of my loveliest skills is negotiation. because I'm absolutely sure that the level of your life depends on the level of your negotiation skills. It's everywhere, starting with salary review and finishing by choosing where to go with your mates. It's also important in the professional career because as a business analyst, you should always negotiate with the team members, client, managers, and so on. Of course, there is a multiple number of books about developing the skills and learn something about it. But in my opinion, the main tips for becoming a better negotiator are learn to say no, find a negotiation club in your city in order to improve such skills, and always try to combat with the problem, not with your opponent. Then we can go further and discuss the hard skills of senior BA. There still remains something you need to learn. But when you are at the senior level, you start learning the artifact that allow you to describe business or client from a high level. I add to this list Canvas business model, user personas, analytical tools, customer journey map, and safe methodology. The most of these artifacts allow you not just only to describe a functionality, but help you to see an overall picture of the business and the clients. I ask you to write in a comment another useful artifact that can help you to describe the business from overall perspective and help to set the strategy for that development that I haven't mentioned. Let's start with Canvas business model. It's a perfect tool to gather all stakeholders and make the overall vision of your business or sometimes a product. It helps you to define the strategy and tactics for reaching the main goals of your business. In order to create it, also useful to prepare the template with draft data and make your stakeholders argue with you, because it's always easy to initiate discussion when you have something wrong than when you have nothing at all. Use personas. User personas are also very powerful tools because they help you understand who is your target audience, define their pain points, and create the product specifically for them, not just for your customer, because finally, only market defines whether your product is successful or not. If we don't consider about some inner product, of course. In order to create user personas, it's obviously necessary to define not only main client group, but also some sub-client groups. For example, the person who buys the toy is usually not the person who uses it. Being a senior business analyst means that there is bound to use analytical tools so as to see the trends in your app, define the pain points, and find the proofs for your hypothesis. Of course, you should be capable to master analytical tools as data analyst, but you should be capable to create some reports and know how to work with analytical dashboards. These tools are very useful when you need to test your hypothesis and ideas. And it's always useful to add some dashboard so as to make this information more representative. Despite the fact that customer journey map is also used by UX UI designers and is also used for testing some hypotheses and so on. Analytical tools are very, very useful. I don't dive deep into analytical tools, but I've passed some courses of Google Analytics. In my opinion, for the beginning, it's more than enough. About customer journey maps, again. First of all, it's necessary to get the data about your user personas and analyze the stages of the customer journey. Then it's necessary to define communication channel, gather and analyze the feedback from your clients, and then define customer obstacles and try to find the solutions that will lead them to the success. Working as a senior business analyst means working on a more complicated project. Usually, the more complicated project is, the more people are working on it. And for such big and complicated project, people usually use SAFe methodology. Of course, it's not easy to get on such project, but at least you can investigate this framework, define the main roles and attributes of this framework, and maybe find some certifications. I say maybe because I didn't pass such certifications, and it would be unfair for me to say about something that I haven't made by myself. By this slide, I want to finish discussing the skills of the different levels of business analysts. I want to say that we shouldn't strictly follow these rules of the levels. We can develop each skills whenever we want and don't wait until we become more experienced business analysts. But because our brains need some structure in order to remember more, I distributed these skills among 3 levels of business analysis. The last part of my presentation will be devoted to the atomic habits that helped me to change my life. I don't persuade you to use them, but I will be glad if some of them will help you to improve some spheres of your life. And I want to say that without these habits, I won't be here. Okay, maybe without this habit, I still would be here, but when I start a day with a glass of water, it gives me not only all these benefits for the body and health, it gives me the feeling that I started the day with one useful thing, and it motivates me to move forward. The second thing that I do in the morning is asking the question, if I were to do 3 things today, which would have the biggest impact on my life goals? It doesn't always include some work. Here can be trainings, meeting with friends, meditations, hobbies, and dates with your girls or wives. I'm sure that sometimes, read as always, it can be more important than reading some extra chapter of any professional book. Specifically, a cozy dinner with your second half would be really cool event. I write down the answer for this question, and it helps me to understand what is most important for me today, and it helps me not to distract from my goal and mission for today. And I really make it my daily habit, even on the weekend. But of course, on the weekend, the tasks are mostly differ from the tasks that I have during some work days. After setting the list of key activities for the day, the most useful that you can do for yourself is to start the day with the most complicated task. I assure you that it will not be easy to start the day like that, because we usually try to postpone these tasks for the later, and that's understandable because our brain wants to do some common and understandable things. That's why I often choose wiping the table instead of writing down another article for my social networks. But if you struggle with this desire to postpone and make the most complicated task at the beginning of your day, it will give you a lot of confidence and energy for the entire day. Try it, and I assure you, it will give you some useful benefits. Another useful habit is a personal diary. This habit wasn't easy to implement in my life because I'm an extrovert and doing some repetitive tasks is very complicated for me. But personal diary helps you to analyze the day and get more self-awareness in life. I usually do it in the morning so as to calm down and have a retrospect of my previous day. Personal Kanban board is a very powerful and even magical tool. My Kanban board for the month includes the next columns: to do, planned, in progress, ball on my side, in progress, ball on their side. That means that some tasks are waiting for some other people actions, but still are in progress. Today, done, and miss. These columns allow me to see an overall picture of the month, understand what is waiting for my action, what's not, and what has to be planned. I also add some marks of my spheres of life to each task, and it helps me to track down how many of them were devoted to each group. The easiest way to increase your performance in 3 times within 2 seconds is to make the same action as on these images. Looks fun, but it works, at least for me. Especially for extroverts, again, hi, all guys, who can't stay calm when see that somebody wrote them something. Try it for 1 day and you see the difference. Turn it on when the work is finished. And the last about which I want to tell you sound. Support yourself, don't blame. I got this understanding on the 25th kilometers of the marathon. I realized that instead of humiliating myself and saying something like now or never, or you won't be successful if you don't finish the line, I decided to deal with myself about every other kilometer. And when I finished the race, I didn't blame myself for low pace. I praised myself for finishing and analyzed what happened to me and why I didn't run as I expected. As I was on the 40th kilometer, we are on the finish line of my meetup. Be prepared because you will start talking soon. But before that, I would like to point out my main outcomes of this meetup for you. There is only one way to develop yourself every day. Make it a habit. The more experienced you become, the more important become your soft skills. If people don't understand you, then in 90%, you need to change your approach, not people. You gain skills not only by learning, but also by teaching. And small daily habits will lead you to big results in the future. And I would also ask you to write down what you remember the most from this meetup. That will help me to understand what was the most useful for you and give others a small refresh of what was said at this speech. While you're writing down, I want to appreciate all of you for your time and ask to argue with me or ask any questions about the topic of this meetup. I will be happy to answer them. And while I will be answering them, you can look at my cool professional image that was made in some specific room. You can go through my social networks or just close this presentation and appreciate yourself for spending some time for self-improvement and self-motivation. Thanks all of you. Would be lucky to answer for some of your questions. And I can see the first question from Yjinia. Thank you. You said about habits, planning, and so on. What are the tricks we can face that can make us give up? Really cool question, to be frank. The first one, I guess, are people. Because if you are surrounded with those who don't support or don't even understand what you are doing, what you want to do, of course, in this case, it's not so easy to improve and to increase this habit. Another point is that you need to make this habit and ability to make this habit as easy as it can be. What do I mean? For instance, you want to invade a habit to drink a glass of water each morning. It's easier to fill and to spill some water in your glass of water in the evening, put this glass into your sofa or near it, and in the morning it will be very easy to make it a habit and to drink it. Another about planning, another part. I guess I don't want to tell a lot about main mistake, but I guess the pain point of all my planning that I tried to invade in my life was that when I plan something, I didn't think that there are some other tasks that I would also need to implement. We always decompose some activities, some goals, and not think about other tactics, other tasks, and so on. And that's why it's very important to see the overall structure and the overall vision of all our goals that we want to fill within a day or within a month or within a year. So hopefully answered for your question. The second is, could you describe 5 last goals which you achieved based on your system? 5 goals. Okay. The goal number 1, I've reached advanced level in English. That was my first goal. The second goal was that I started going to some yoga classes. I'm not good at it 100%. I'm not very patient person, but I try to. And for me, at least, starting and passing through 3 sessions of yoga is very, very cool. And I want to proceed. The third goal that I've achieved, I guess, was devoted to buying a car. So I've bought a car, and it was a really cool goal for me. The fourth goal was to run a marathon within this year. It wasn't so easy, to be frank, because I have some strains and some impediments for that in this season. And I guess the last was that I've recovered my wheel from some strain so as to move forward and to proceed. That's it. Tell me, the third question is, tell me, how did you achieve such a good pronunciation in English? First of all, I want to appreciate all my teachers of English. That's a great, I have great appreciation for them. The second is that I usually try to read books out loud, the books that usually are in English. The third key is that, to be frank, I've made some exercises before this meetup so as to improve my speech. They look a little bit strange, but anyway, they help me to improve my stability and improve my speech and some verbal and non-verbal representational skills. Then I guess sometimes when I didn't have a teacher or anybody, I just was speaking in front of the mirror with myself. Of course, it were very, very odd and strange discussions, but anyway, it allowed me to increase a little bit pronunciation. And I guess the last but not least, it's better to listen and watch some bloggers or video podcasts that have a good pronunciation. I'm adored with Will Smith YouTube blogs that he used to have. I don't know now actually whether he filmed something or not, but I consider that he also have some good pronunciation because English is not my native language. The next question is, what does it mean to talk to a person using his/her language? Very cool question. And I think that understanding of this point gives you a lot of benefit and profit for you. What do I mean? I had a situation when I came into iStore shop and asked a seller to describe me what are the benefits of a new iPhone. It was like the iPhone number 12 or some sort of that. And I told him that I'm not a tech-savvy person. I don't want to investigate all these resolutions and so on. And you know what? He started talking about the matrices, about some resolutions and some sort of that. That's why we always need to understand whom we are talking with. If we are talking with a developer, we need to use his language, his technical background, use some tricky words from like development perspective. If we are talking with our managers, we always need to talk and speak in figures in the results about our team. We shouldn't say just about us because what the manager needs, he needs to understand how it moves you forward and how it moves the department forward and how what you do now leads to some goals in the future of the department. And of course, if you're talking with the client, you need to say not some word like, it's not so complicated or it's not so easy to do or it's not so useful. You always should use figures because sales, of course, are always fond of using some money aspects, and that's it. And that's why you always should show the part of this business side. And if you're talking to your colleagues, you need to understand that if you're talking to some newcomers or just interns, you shouldn't use these buzzwords or just some tricky words. You just need to make it as simple as you can, because in this case, the person would have more chance to understand you. That's my understanding, my clarification of this question. The next question: how have you defined all skills related to each level? Tricky question. I would be fair with you. First of all, of course, I prioritize them from the beginning. Like, what is the junior skills? These, I think, 20% of Pareto rule that will allow you to describe in some way the functionality. And if you understand and know at least these artifacts, they will help you to move forward in your career and to help your project. When we are talking about middle, that's more about more sophisticated tasks, more about understanding what to use, not just use what you know, but to differ what's better to use here, like state chart, either state chart diagram or class diagram, so as to understand what will be more useful. And at the senior level, as for me, I usually is not so interested in some technical aspects of what should be done. I'm more interested about the questions like why, how, we need to implement this functionality, and that's why it's more important to see and define the overall structure of your business. And of course, the most complicated question for your client or for your customer is like, did you define why your potential clients would like to use your product instead of current solutions, or why would they try this product if nothing exists? Because without understanding the answer for these questions, it won't be useful to create anything. You would just make the common system that works perfectly, but isn't necessary for anybody. And that's why the senior level is more about assumptions, because I think they are more devoted to product owner responsibilities, because senior BA is in some kind of product ownership and tries to think more in hypotheses than just and in defining the gaps and defining the pain points than just in thinking about some ways of solving or some solution requirements or some sort of that. That was, again, my answer. And that's all about questions. Again, I want to appreciate you for visiting this meetup and my presentation. And I would like finally to wish you, no matter how it is complicated in your life, within any period of your life, if you truly believe that it's yours and you want to move it, don't listen anybody, listen just yourself and go forward. Thank you for that. Yjinia, I'm waiting for you.
Hi, thank you, Kirill, for your presentation. Thank you all guys who have been staying with us, for your questions, for your appreciations. Thank you a lot. So, and before going forward, I just want to highlight that the conference is being streamed from the official YouTube channel of the Global BA community, and here you'll find recordings of all our past events, interviews, podcasts, and a lot of very cool content. So subscribe to the channel and stay up to date, stay with us.